The first time someone used my student ID to steal an examination, I lost my degree, my scholarship, my mother's faith in me, and 6 years of my life. The second time, I reported the card missing before the thief even realized I knew it was gone. That single report changed everything. In my first life, I woke on the morning of the Integrated Clinical Sciences final with an email from the university's Academic Conduct Office ordering me not to attend. Security records showed that my ID had entered the restricted early sitting room at 6:42 a.m., 2 hours before the main exam. Someone using my identity had signed for an answer booklet, photographed 3 pages of questions, and vanished during a fire alarm evacuation. By 9, those questions had circulated through a private group chat. By noon, half the cohort knew there had been a leak. By evening, the card logs, signature sheet, and a grainy hallway image all pointed to me. I said my ID had been missing since the previous afternoon, but I had not reported it because I assumed I had left it in the library. That delay became the rope they used to hang me. The dean asked why I had told no one and why my PIN had been entered correctly. My best friend, Serena Vale, sat beside me and told them I had seemed strangely nervous the night before. 2 weeks later, she was awarded the top mark in the leaked exam. 3 months later, I was expelled for premeditated academic fraud. 4 years later, Serena graduated as valedictorian and told a student magazine that integrity mattered more than intelligence. That night, after my final appeal failed, I drove through a storm to confront her at the hospital where she had begun internship. I never reached the building. A truck crossed the center line, white headlights filled my windscreen, and the last thing I remembered was Serena's smiling face frozen on my phone. Then I opened my eyes to the sound of my dorm alarm, and the date on the screen was 14 days before the examination that had destroyed me. For several seconds, I could not move. My body expected broken ribs and blood in my mouth, but I was 22 again, uninjured, lying beneath the faded blue blanket my mother had mailed from home. Rain tapped against the dorm window. My anatomy flashcard still covered the desk. My phone showed Monday, November 11th, 6:18 a.m. The Integrated Clinical Sciences final was scheduled for November 25th. I stared at those facts until they became real enough to hurt. Then I reached automatically for the lanyard hanging from the bedpost. The plastic sleeve was empty. My student ID was already gone. In my first life, I noticed after lunch and let Serena help me pretend to search. She had taken it from my coat pocket while I showered. I did not learn that until years later, when a former classmate sent me a photograph from Serena's private social media account. In the background of a study room selfie taken that same morning, my card lay beneath her notebook. The university dismissed the image as inconclusive because the appeal deadline had passed. Reborn, I did not search the room. I did not text Serena. I did not wait for the security office to open. I called the 24-hour campus line and said, "My student identification card has been stolen." The operator corrected me gently. "Do you mean lost?"
No.
"Stolen. It was inside a closed pocket in my locked dorm suite. Please deactivate it immediately and record the report time." She asked whether there had been forced entry.
No.
My roommate and one guest had access. My roommate was away visiting family. The guest had been Serena. The operator's tone changed. She gave me an incident number, confirmed that the card was disabled at 6:26 a.m., and told me to attend security when the office opened. I emailed the number to myself and my mother. Only then did I receive Serena's first message of the morning. "Awake? Want to revise cardio after breakfast?" I looked at the screen and felt something inside me go perfectly still. In my first life, she had been my safest person. In my second, she was a crime scene wearing a familiar face. I answered with one word: "Sure." Then I showered, dressed, and moved through the room as though nothing had changed. I photographed the room, exported the dorm log showing Serena's visit, and backed up our messages, including the one where she had asked whether my PIN was still my mother's birthday. At the time, I had answered yes. In my first life, the conduct panel treated that as proof I had voluntarily shared access. In this life, I changed the PIN at 6:41 and requested a full historical card access report. By 8, I was sitting opposite security officer Mina Alvarez. I told her the card had been removed from a zipped coat pocket. I did not accuse Serena directly. I listed everyone with access, described the lanyard's location, and asked whether the disabled card would trigger an alert if used. It will reject, Mina said. Most doors simply flash red. Can the system send a live notification? Not normally for a lost card. What about a stolen one connected to an active report? She studied me. Why do you expect someone to use it? The truthful answer was that I had already watched the future. Instead, I said, because whoever took it could have left the card and stolen cash. They chose the ID. Mina leaned back. That is a fair point. She upgraded the report, flagged the old card number, and instructed me not to confront anyone. The replacement office printed a new ID with a different number, silver strip, and visible issue date. By 9:30, I had more documentation than in my entire first investigation. Yet I did not feel triumphant. I felt watched. Serena was standing across the courtyard beneath a yellow umbrella, smiling as though she had arrived by coincidence. There you are, she called. I've been texting. Did you lose something? The question was too early. I had told no one except security and my mother. I raised the replacement card. My ID disappeared. For one fraction of a second, her smile stopped. Then concern flooded her face. Again? You're always misplacing things. Not this time. What do you mean? I reported it stolen. The umbrella tilted as her grip changed. Stolen is a little dramatic, isn't it? Maybe. But security agreed it was safer. I watched her eyes drop to the new issue date. Did they cancel the old one? She asked. Immediately. That was the first moment I knew Rebirth had not made her cautious enough. It had only forced her to improvise. Serena and I met during orientation when she spilled coffee across my admissions folder and cried harder than I did. She remembered birthdays, brought soup to sick classmates, and knew how to make every confession feel sacred. I was the opposite. Blunt, organized, and visibly ambitious. People asked Serena for comfort and me for answers. She told me about her father leaving, her mother's debts, and the pressure of maintaining a merit scholarship. I told her about growing up above my mother's laundromat, studying beside rattling dryers because it was the only heated room during winter. By second year, we shared notes, meals, and every fear we were ashamed to admit publicly. That intimacy was why her betrayal had been so complete. She did not need to break into my life. I had handed her the map. In the first timeline, I eventually discovered that Serena's scholarship required her to place in the top 5% after finals. Her pharmacology marks had collapsed. She had also begun a relationship with Caleb Dunn, a student assistant in the examinations office who could view room assignments and early sitting schedules. The two of them used my ID to access an accommodated exam session before the main sitting. Serena wore my long coat, a surgical mask, and glasses similar to mine. Caleb arranged for the desk camera to face the wrong angle and enter my PIN when the card reader requested it. Their plan was not merely to steal questions. It was to make the leak traceable to me if anyone investigated. In my first life, Caleb claimed he had seen me near the office. Serena tearfully confirmed that I had complained about needing a high mark. Their stories fit because they had rehearsed them around facts only a friend would know. Reborn, I possessed their full design but not evidence that would satisfy anyone. If I accused them now, Serena would discard the card, Caleb would erase messages, and the plan would change shape. I needed them to believe they still had time. So when Serena asked whether security suspected anyone, I shrugged. They think it probably fell from my pocket and someone picked it up. Relief passed through her so quickly that another person might have missed it. That's probably all, she said. You shouldn't let it distract you from finals. I smiled. You're right. The exam matters more. The first interruption came that afternoon. Serena arrived at our usual library table carrying 2 iced teas and a printed revision schedule. She had always used helpfulness to occupy space around me. I accepted the drink but did not taste it. I adjusted our plan, she said, sliding the schedule over. We should focus on the likely integrated cases. Cardio, respiratory, endocrine, maybe renal. In my first life, she steered me away from neurology because Caleb had told her the exam emphasis in advance. This time, I circled neurology. Let's start there. Really? I heard it's barely assessed. From whom? Just people. Which people? She laughed. You've become suspicious overnight. My ID was stolen overnight. Her pen paused. Then she leaned closer. Be honest. Do you think I took it? The directness almost impressed me. Serena's greatest talent was stepping into suspicion before anyone else could place her there. It made her look brave. Were you the last person in my room? I asked. Yes, but I would never steal from you. Then you have nothing to worry about. Hurt gathered carefully in her expression. After everything I've done for you, I can't believe you'd even consider it. In my first life, that sentence would have forced me into apology. I would have listed her kindnesses until I forgot the missing card. Reborn, I said. I didn't accuse you. You accused yourself and then became offended. Her eyes hardened before she looked down. You're exhausted. Probably. Maybe you should postpone the exam. There was another detail I had forgotten. 2 weeks before the original final, Serena had repeatedly suggested I seek a medical deferral. If I had withdrawn, the leaked early sitting attached to my ID would have looked even more deliberate. Access the paper, distribute questions, avoid the exam. I'm sitting every final, I said. No matter what. She folded the revision schedule with precise movements. Good. I only want what's best for you. I know. That answer unsettled her more than anger would have. After Serena left, I contacted the one person I had ignored in my first life, Imogen Park, the student representative on the Assessment Security Committee. Imogen and I were not friends. We had competed for the same research placement, and Serena often described her as cold, strategic, and obsessed with rules. Years later, when I reviewed my disciplinary file, I discovered that Imogen had raised concerns about the reliability of the card access evidence. Her objection was omitted from the final summary because she was a non-voting student member. I found her in the Anatomy Museum cataloging specimens for extra credit. I need advice about exam security, I said. She did not look up. That sounds ominous. My ID was stolen this morning. Now she looked at me. Did you report it? At 6:18. Deactivated at 6:26. Then why are you worried? I chose my words carefully. The person who took it may have been interested in more than building access. Do you have a reason to think that? The card disappeared from a closed pocket, and someone asked whether it had been deactivated before asking whether I was okay. Imogen closed the catalog. Who? I'm not ready to name them without proof. Then what do you want from me? Tell me where a stolen card could be useful during finals even after deactivation. She considered the question. Doors with offline readers may not update until they sync. Older exam rooms use local verification lists. If someone had the physical card and your PIN, they might still persuade an invigilator there was a system fault. What about early sittings? Her eyes narrowed. How do you know there are early sittings? Students with approved accommodations use them. That schedule is confidential. But examination staff can view it. Imogen stared at me long enough that I wondered whether I had revealed too much. Then she said, Caleb Dunn works in that office. I did not react. He's Serena's boyfriend, she continued. Unofficially. How do you know? Because he booked the committee room every Thursday for inventory review, and Serena leaves it with him. I almost laughed from the sharpness of relief. In my first life, I had spent months believing their relationship began after my expulsion. Can you request an audit of offline readers? I asked. Not based on a feeling. What if the stolen card is used? Then the alert needs to reach someone who will preserve it. She tore a blank label from the catalog sheet, wrote a phone number, and handed it to me. This is the direct line for Dr. Tomas Reed, the independent chief invigilator. Do not call unless something actually happens. I folded the label into my pocket. Something will. For the next 6 days, nothing happened. That was more frightening than an immediate attack because it meant Serena and Caleb were adapting. Serena remained kind but less present. She stopped studying beside me and claimed migraines whenever I suggested meeting. Caleb appeared twice in the medical library, though he had never studied there before. The first time, he sat where he could see my new card clipped to my bag. The second, he asked whether replacement IDs used different numbers. Security has been changing the system, I said vaguely. Why? Curiosity. I work with a database. I smiled. Then you should already know. He did not smile back. Meanwhile, I built a life that could not be rewritten after the fact. I studied only in camera-covered rooms. I checked in with the librarian each evening and kept receipts from every cafe. I created a private daily video log showing my location, clothing, and study plan. I shared my calendar with my mother and asked her to call at irregular times. She thought the precautions were excessive until I told her someone at college might try to use my identity. I did not explain rebirth, but my mother understood danger through instinct. Come home, she said. Take the exams next semester. If I leave, they win before they act. Who is they? I don't know how many yet. That answer was more honest than I intended. Serena and Caleb were responsible, but the first investigation had contained irregularities too large for 2 students. The camera failure went unreviewed, the signature sheet disappeared, and Dean Holloway delayed my appeal while chairing the scholarship board that rewarded Serena. Reborn, I wondered whether someone higher had known. On the 7th day, the old card finally moved. At 4:12 a.m., my phone lit with an automated security notice Mina had quietly arranged. Deactivated credential attempt. North Clinical Annex, door N3. I called Mina, Imogen, and Dr. Reed. At 4:15, a second attempt appeared at the same door. At 4:17, the card was used at the offline side entrance. That reader accepted it. I left the dorm, but did not go to the annex. In my first life, panic had repeatedly placed me where Serena needed witnesses to see me. This time, I walked to the 24-hour campus cafe, ordered tea, and sat beneath the camera facing the register. I called my mother on video and kept her speaking while I watched the alerts. At 4:23, my old card entered the annex examination corridor. At 4:26, it accessed print room N3 using a staff override. At 4:31, the early sitting check in terminal recorded my name. The exam was not the integrated clinical sciences paper. It was the pharmacology final scheduled for the main cohort at 10 that morning. Serena had changed the target. She and Caleb likely assumed the stolen card report made the original plan too risky, so they moved earlier and chose the subject threatening her scholarship most. At 4:34, Dr. Reed returned my call. I gave him the incident number and said, A deactivated stolen ID is inside the North Annex right now. Please do not alert the room remotely. Preserve the camera feeds and send independent security. He asked how I knew. Because the credential belongs to me, and I'm sitting in the South Cafe on video with my mother. My mother stopped speaking. Reed understood before she did. Stay where you are, he said. I hated that command because part of me wanted to run toward the annex and tear the card from Serena's hands. But evidence required distance. I ordered another tea, asked the barista to confirm the time on camera, and waited. At 4:46, the alert stream stopped. At 4:53, Mina texted one sentence. We have a woman in custody carrying your old card. At 4:55, another message arrived. It is not Serena Vale. The world shifted beneath me. I read the line again. Not Serena. In my first life, every discovery had arrived too late. In my second, the future had changed so sharply that memory could no longer guide me. The woman using my ID was Lila Moreno, a first-year nursing student I had never met. She was close to my height and had been told to wear a cap and surgical mask. Security found my old card, a handwritten pin, and an earpiece connected to a phone taped beneath her sweater. She had entered the annex believing she was participating in a paid exam systems audit. Caleb had recruited her through a student jobs forum, promising $200 and assuring her that the ID belonged to a volunteer. The phone was receiving messages from an account named Orchid. Serena's name appeared nowhere. At 5:20, Mina asked me to come to security. I requested an escort, and Imogen arrived in a coat thrown over pajamas. You said something would happen, she whispered as we crossed the courtyard. I didn't expect a stranger. That means they built distance. Or I was wrong about who they are. Inside security, Lila was crying so violently she could barely answer questions. She insisted she had not known an exam was taking place. Caleb sat in another room with a university lawyer. He claimed someone had stolen his staff login and used it to message Lila. The print room camera had gone offline, and the hallway showed only a masked figure. My first life was repeating with different faces. Then Mina placed my old card inside an evidence sleeve and said, "There's a fingerprint on the back beneath the laminate edge. We'll request analysis if the university authorizes it." "They won't," I said. Imogen looked at me. "Why not?" Before I could answer, Dean Holloway entered the room. He was a tall man with silver hair and a voice that made instructions sound like condolences. He introduced himself as the executive dean's delegate and asked Mina to transfer the matter to the Internal Academic Conduct Office. My stomach tightened. This was the person who had buried my appeal. "Security should retain criminal evidence," I said. Holloway smiled gently. "There is no indication of a crime against you, Miss Hart. The card may simply have changed hands. It was taken from my room. That remains unproven. Someone used it to enter a restricted exam area, which may represent student misconduct rather than criminal theft." Then why is Caleb speaking with a university lawyer? The smile disappeared. Holloway looked at Mina. "Separate the students. No further joint discussion." Reborn or not, I had reached the same wall. But this time I was not alone. Imogen had heard Holloway. Mina had recorded the exchange as part of the INSIN file. Dr. Reed had already copied the access logs to an independent examination server. My mother had a time-stamped video showing my location throughout the intrusion. When Holloway ordered me to surrender my replacement ID for comparison, I asked for the policy in writing. He withdrew the request. When he suggested postponing my pharmacology exam due to stress, I said I was prepared to sit under enhanced supervision. He seemed disappointed. At 9:15, I entered the main examination hall through a separate door, presented my new card, and allowed 2 invigilators to inspect the silver strip and issue date. Serena was seated 3 rows ahead. She turned as I passed, and the shock on her face was so naked that my fear settled into certainty. She had expected me to be detained. She had expected another person's use of my card to pull me out of the exam exactly as it had in my first life. Instead, I sat down behind her. The paper began at 10. Serena answered the first page quickly, then slowed. The stolen early sitting had been interrupted before Lila reached the sealed paper. Serena did not have the questions. For 2 hours, I watched the muscles in her shoulders tighten. Halfway through, an invigilator approached her desk and asked to inspect her calculator. Serena's hand shook as she passed it over. Nothing was found. That small interruption broke her rhythm completely. She left 3 short answer sections blank. I completed mine and submitted with 7 minutes remaining. Outside the hall, Serena caught my sleeve. "What happened this morning?" she asked. "Why would I know? Everyone is saying someone broke into the annex with your ID. Then you know as much as I do. Were you questioned?" "Briefly." "Did they arrest anyone?" Her voice was too casual. "Security detained a nursing student." Serena's eyes widened at the unexpected detail. "A nursing student? Do you know her?" "No." "Then why do you look relieved?" She released my sleeve. "I'm worried about you. You should worry about pharmacology." Her face hardened. I walked away before she could rebuild the mask. The university attempted to contain the incident by canceling only the early accommodated sitting and replacing the pharmacology paper for affected students. Yet Dr. Reed objected. The breach involved staff credentials, a stolen ID, and possible advance access. He insisted on an external review before any grades were released. Holloway pushed back, arguing that widespread cancellation would damage students who had done nothing wrong. That argument sounded noble because it protected the institution from admitting how easily its systems had been manipulated. Meanwhile, Caleb was suspended from the examinations office, but remained enrolled. Lila was placed on interim leave. Serena continued attending finals. I sat pathology on Wednesday, clinical reasoning on Friday, and population health the following Monday. Each time, I presented my replacement card and signed beside the new identification number. Each time, Serena watched me from somewhere in the room. She no longer pretended we were friends. Instead, rumors began. Students whispered that I had staged the theft to create an excuse in case my grades were poor. Someone posted anonymously that I had paid Lila and blamed Caleb after a romantic rejection. Another claimed I was harassing Serena out of jealousy. The details were absurd, but repetition made them sticky. In my first life, I tried to answer every rumor. Reborn, I answered none. I sent each post to my solicitor and continued studying. Then, on the night before clinical reasoning, someone slid an envelope beneath my dorm door. Inside was a photocopy of my original ID, enlarged across the page. A red line had been drawn through my face. Beneath it, typed words read, "Withdraw your complaint or everyone learns why you really needed the exam." I photographed the envelope, called Mina, and did not touch it again. Security found no usable prints, but the printer left a faint yellow tracking pattern. Mina said most color printers embedded machine identifiers. The university's legal office requested that she not pursue it without authorization. She sent the image to city police anyway. The threat produced a result Serena did not expect. It moved the matter outside Halcyon. Detective Alina Graves from the city's Financial and Identity Crime Unit contacted me the next afternoon. She explained that using a stolen credential to access restricted systems could constitute identity fraud, especially when combined with impersonation and attempted financial benefit through scholarships. Unlike the Academic Conduct Office, she was interested in chain of custody. She collected the card, envelope, access logs, and Lila's phone. She obtained a warrant for the Orchid account records. Caleb's claim that his login had been stolen weakened when the service provider traced the messages to a tablet registered on his home network. Yet the most important discovery came from the payments. Lila's promised money had been transferred in advance from a digital wallet opened with documents belonging to another student, a graduate named Elise Vaughn who had left Halcyon 2 years earlier. Graves contacted Elise and learned that her ID had also vanished during finals. Elise had failed an exam after questions leaked under her credential, accepted a quiet withdrawal agreement, and never returned to medicine. I remembered her name from a framed honor board that abruptly skipped 1 year. The scheme was older than me. Was Serena a student then? I asked. First year, Graves said. Caleb was already working part-time in examinations. And Holloway? Dean of Student Progression. The wall had a foundation. Graves warned me not to assume Serena controlled the network. People who benefit from fraud are not always the people who designed it. I understood, but benefit was not innocence. She asked whether I had noticed anyone steering me toward a particular scholarship or exam result. I described Serena's repeated concern about rankings, Holloway's pressure to postpone, and Caleb's access. Then I remembered something from my first life. After my expulsion, Serena received not only the Merit Scholarship, but the Ashcroft Clinical Fellowship, an award administered by Holloway's private foundation. The fellowship included a hospital placement controlled by donors who preferred a flawless top-ranked candidate. My removal had created the vacancy. This may not be about passing one exam, I said. It may be about deciding who gets to remain eligible. Graves nodded. Now you're asking the right question. The next twist arrived through my mother. She called while I was leaving population health and said a woman had visited the laundromat asking about my childhood records. She said she was from the scholarship office. My mother explained. She wanted proof that you worked here during high school. Did she show identification? A business card. Claudia Valle. Serena's mother. In all the years I knew Serena, she described Claudia as a struggling real estate agent with no connection to the university. I searched the name and found almost nothing except a dormant consultancy registered to an address shared with the Ashcroft Foundation. My mother had not given her documents, but Claudia left a form requesting tax records, school attendance, and family income. The stated purpose was eligibility verification. Graves told me not to contact Serena. I remembered a witness statement in my old disciplinary file signed C. Vale, external compliance consultant. The surname had not been coincidental. Serena's mother had helped prepare the case that expelled me. The betrayal was engineered. Serena's family knew which delays looked suspicious, which documents could vanish, and which rumors would influence a panel. I returned to the dorm and found Serena waiting outside my door. "We need to talk," she said. "No. Your mother spoke to mine. Your mother approached mine under false pretenses. She was verifying a scholarship complaint." "Which complaint?" "Someone said you lied about financial hardship." I laughed once. I grew up folding other people's underwear for coins. What part is difficult to verify? Serena flinched. "This is getting bigger than either of us." It was always bigger. I was simply the last person told. Withdraw the accusation against Caleb. I never filed one against him. Police followed evidence. He could go to prison. "Are you worried he'll speak?" Her face changed. There was not love, not loyalty, but fear of information moving. "You don't understand what he's been through," she said. "And you understood what I would go through? I never wanted you expelled." The corridor seemed to narrow. "You knew that was possible." She looked away. That was answer enough. I unlocked my door, but kept the security chain across it. Serena stood outside while I remained inside, a physical boundary where none had existed before. "Tell me the truth now," I said, "and I'll record that you came voluntarily." "You're recording me?" "The corridor is recorded." She glanced toward the camera. "My mother said the system was supposed to create a conduct flag, not expulsion. You would retake the exam, your ranking would drop, and the fellowship shortlist would change. So you stole my ID." "I borrowed it. A stranger used it while pretending to be me." "That wasn't the original plan." "What was?" She pressed her lips together. "Caleb was supposed to scan the card at the early room and copy the paper after the invigilator stepped out. No one was meant to impersonate you. When you reported the card, he changed it." "Why didn't you stop him?" "Because the scholarship deadline is next week. If I lose funding, I leave." "You could have studied." The cruelty of that sentence made her eyes fill, but I did not retract it. "I did study," she said. "I'm not you. I can work for 10 hours and still forget everything when the clock starts." "Then medicine may not be the place where you rank first." Easy for you to say. "Nothing about my life has been easy. You always win eventually." Her voice rose. "People call you brilliant even when you're rude. Professors forgive you because your marks make them look good. I do everything right socially, I help everyone, I make people comfortable, and one bad semester can erase me. So you chose to erase me first. I thought you'd survive it." That sentence entered me more deeply than any insult. Serena believed my strength made me usable. She had treated resilience as permission to cause harm. "You watched me lose my degree," I said quietly. "That hasn't happened. Not this time." She stared at me. I had said too much. "What does that mean?" I opened the door just enough to meet her eyes. "It means this is the last conversation we have without lawyers." Then I closed it. Serena reported the conversation before I did. She told academic conduct that I had threatened her, claimed knowledge of future events, and appeared psychologically unstable. Holloway issued an emergency well-being order requiring me to meet a campus psychiatrist before sitting my final exam, diagnostic medicine. The order arrived 48 hours before the paper. It was the exact kind of maneuver that had defeated me before: transform evidence into instability, then use concern as a weapon. My solicitor challenged the order, but the university insisted it was non-disciplinary. If I refused, I could be excluded from the hall for safety reasons. I attended the assessment with Dr. Neve Collins, an external psychiatrist contracted by the university. Holloway provided her with selected messages, including my statement, "Not this time," but omitted the theft report and police investigation. I brought the complete timeline. Dr. Collins asked about sleep, hallucinations, and why I spoke as though events had happened before. I could not tell her I had died and returned without risking the conclusion Holloway wanted. So I told a narrower truth. I was catastrophizing from evidence, I said. When Serena admitted she thought I would survive a conduct flag, I imagined the full consequences. I used the wrong tense because I was angry. "Do you believe you can predict the future?" "No." "I believe people repeat strategies." Do you believe Ms. Vale intends to harm you? She admitted stealing my ID to manipulate scholarship rankings. Dr. Collins paused. That admission was not included in the referral. I played the corridor audio obtained from security. Serena's voice filled the office. My mother said the system was supposed to create a conduct flag. Dr. Collins listened to the entire recording twice. Then she closed Holloway's file. Her report stated that I showed acute stress appropriate to a documented threat, no psychosis, no impairment of judgment, and no clinical basis for examination exclusion. She added that weaponizing psychiatric referral within an active misconduct dispute could worsen harm. Holloway received the report at 3:40 p.m. By 4, he had been removed from direct oversight of my case, pending conflict review. The pattern broke again, not because the institution became moral, but because I arrived with the missing context before they could define me without it. Diagnostic medicine was the final paper and the most important. It counted for 30% of the year and determined eligibility for clinical placement. The university assigned independent invigilators, sealed the room 2 hours early, and required every student to present 2 forms of identification. Serena entered carrying her passport and current student card. She looked composed until Detective Graves appeared at the back of the hall with 2 plainclothes officers. They did not arrest anyone. Their presence alone altered the air. Before papers were distributed, Dr. Reed announced that all devices, watches, and unauthorized materials had to be surrendered. A student in the front row handed over a smartwatch. Another produced notes from a sleeve. Then, an invigilator reached Serena. She passed over her phone and calculator. The handheld scanner beeped near her blazer pocket. Serena froze. From the inner lining, the invigilator removed a wafer-thin electronic transmitter no larger than a coin. Serena said she had never seen it before. Caleb's messages later showed he had instructed her to wear the blazer because Claudia had sewn the transmitter into the lining. The device was designed to receive coded vibrations corresponding to multiple-choice answers. Serena insisted she did not know. Perhaps that part was true. Her mother had prepared not only the fraud but the defense. If discovered, Serena could claim she had worn an altered garment unknowingly. Yet the examination regulations imposed strict liability for concealed communication devices. Dr. Reed removed her from the hall. As she passed my desk, she whispered, "Please." It was the first honest word she had spoken to me in years across 2 lives. I looked down at my unopened paper. "Tell them everything," I said. She disappeared through the door. The exam began without her. I expected relief, but during the first 10 minutes, I could not read. My mind replayed the transmitter, Serena's face, and the possibility that Claudia had controlled more than Serena admitted. Revenge stories pretend exposure creates immediate clarity. In reality, consequences arrive tangled. Serena had stolen my card willingly, yet her mother had built a system around her fear. Caleb had changed the plan, yet he too answered to someone. Holloway had protected the scheme, but perhaps the foundation pressured him. None of that changed the harm. It only made the harm crowded. I pressed my feet to the floor and forced myself back into the exam. The first cases tested endocrine and infectious disease. The third was deliberately ambiguous. I wrote what the evidence supported and stated what additional test I needed. That became the rule of my second life. Never claim certainty beyond the evidence, but never abandon what the evidence clearly shows. I finished with 4 minutes remaining. Outside, the corridor was empty except for Mina. "Serena is speaking with police," she said. "Her mother has been detained at the airport. One-way ticket." I sat on a bench because my knees stopped cooperating. Mina handed me water. "There's more." The printer tracking dots from the threat letter match a machine in the Ashcroft Foundation office. Holloway authorized after-hours access. They also found archived ID scans belonging to 8 students. 8. Across 6 years. The number landed like a weight. Elise had not been the first either. We had been selected, ranked, and displaced according to needs we never knew existed. Students with scholarships, fellowships, donor connections, or inconvenient grades had been manipulated through leaked exams and conduct flags. Some beneficiaries may not have known. Others, like Serena, knew enough. The university suspended release of every final grade while the external review examined the scope of compromise. Students were furious. They blamed security, administrators Caleb, Serena, and eventually me. My name leaked because the old card was central evidence. Social media filled with accusations that I had caused hundreds of innocent students to suffer. A group gathered outside my dorm chanting for grades to be released. Someone threw red paint across my door. The college moved me to a hotel. Reborn, I understood that crowds often hate the person who reveals a wound more than the person who caused it. I gave one statement through my solicitor. I reported a stolen ID before it was used. All subsequent decisions were made by investigators and the university. I would not apologize for that. Meanwhile, Serena's case expanded. Her phone contained photographs of revision notes, scholarship documents, and messages with Claudia discussing rank protection. Caleb provided access schedules. Holloway delayed alerts and redirected investigations. Most damaging of all, Serena's previous final results showed irregular digital patterns. In 3 remote assessments, her answers had been submitted from 2 devices in different buildings. In an oral pharmacology exam, the examiner's score sheet had been replaced after moderation. Her clinical anatomy practical contained station answers that matched a confidential master list, including a typo not present in student materials. The review could not determine which grades reflected her ability, so every final grade since first year entered cancellation review. Serena's lawyer argued that collective cancellation was excessive. The panel disagreed. Fraud did not contaminate only the exam where the thief was caught. It destroyed confidence in every result connected to the same method. One by one, the grades vanished from her transcript. When the formal disciplinary hearing began in February, Serena had no valid final grades left. Without them, she did not meet progression requirements for any completed year. The external chair insisted on hearing the full network. Claudia faced criminal proceedings, Caleb agreed to testify, and Holloway resigned without halting the investigation. I attended as a witness, not an accused student. That distinction felt almost unreal. The same kind of room had ended my first life. Polished table, water glasses, neutral faces. This time, my chair faced the panel rather than the wall. Serena's lawyer asked whether I hated her. Yes, I said. He had expected denial. So your testimony is motivated by hatred? My feelings explain why this hurts. The records explain what happened. You created an elaborate trail to implicate my client. I reported my property stolen. You anticipated its use. Because the thief asked whether it had been deactivated. You recorded conversations. After an identity crime, you contacted police rather than resolving the matter internally. The internal dean later appeared in the evidence. Each attempt to make preparation look sinister only highlighted why preparation had been necessary. Then Serena testified. She admitted taking my card from my coat. She admitted giving it to Caleb. She admitted knowing the goal was to change scholarship rankings by creating suspicion around me. She denied knowing about Lila, the transmitter, earlier students, or the altered score sheets. Caleb contradicted part of that. He said Serena had used advanced questions twice before, though Claudia told her they came from predictive faculty tutoring. Serena cried when she heard this, not delicately as she once had, but with her whole body folding inward. I believed some of her shock. A person can be both manipulated and guilty. That complexity did not save her transcript. The panel's decision was exhaustive. Serena was found responsible for identity misuse, attempted unauthorized access to an assessment, collusion, failure to report misconduct, receipt of compromised examination content, and conduct intended to distort scholarship selection. Because the integrity of her prior finals could not be verified, all final examination grades from her program were canceled. Coursework marks remained visible but insufficient for progression or degree completion. She was expelled and barred from readmission for 10 years. Caleb was permanently excluded from employment or study at Halcyon. Holloway lost emeritus privileges and was referred to the Professional Standards Authority. Claudia faced charges relating to identity fraud, unlawful system access, document falsification, intimidation, and conspiracy. The Ashcroft Foundation was dissolved after donors learned that fellowship outcomes had been manipulated to produce marketable success stories. 4 former students, including Elise, received new hearings. 2 had their records corrected. 1 returned to study. Another declined, saying the institution could not give back the years it had taken. I understood that better than anyone, even though in this life those years still belonged to me. Halcyon offered compensation and counseling to affected students. It also offered me a public commendation for courage in reporting. I refused the ceremony. Courage was not what made the difference. Timing did. Had I waited until afternoon, the old card might have been used before deactivation. Had I searched quietly instead of calling security, Serena would have rewritten the story. Had I trusted friendship over instinct, I would have stood accused again. The university wanted a heroic lesson because heroes are easier to celebrate than systems are to repair. My lesson was less flattering. Institutions often believe the first complete record, so create it before someone else creates one for you. My own grades were released after independent verification. I passed every final and ranked 3rd in the cohort. In my first life, I would have mourned not placing first. Reborn, 3rd felt clean. No leaked questions, altered sheets, or stolen credentials stood beneath it. The top-ranked student was Imogen, who accepted the Ashcroft Replacement Scholarship only after the award was transferred to an independently audited fund. Imogen and I never became sentimental best friends. We trusted each other because we had watched each other under pressure. Mina received a promotion to lead campus credential security. Dr. Reed redesigned the examination system so stolen IDs triggered live alerts across every reader, online or offline. Replacement cards displayed issue dates and required facial verification at high security sittings. No single dean could redirect an incident from security to internal conduct without independent approval. These changes appeared in university publicity as innovation. None of the articles mentioned how many students had been sacrificed before the system became worth fixing. My mother framed my final transcript beside the laundromat register. Customers asked why I was not first. She told them, because 3rd is where honest people sometimes land when the race has been crooked. I pretended to be embarrassed, but I kept the frame. I saw Serena once more, 18 months later, at the courthouse where Claudia was sentenced. Serena was not charged with the full conspiracy because of her cooperation, but she had spent the year working in a call center while appealing the 10-year ban. Her hair was shorter. Without the white coat, lanyard, and circle of classmates around her, she looked ordinary in a way that would once have satisfied me. It did not. She approached while our lawyers were speaking near the entrance. "I heard you're starting clinical placement," she said. "Next month. You'll be good." I waited. Compliments had always been her doorway to requests. "I'm not asking you to change your statement," she said. "The appeal is about the length of the ban. 10 years is shorter than forever." She understood the reference even though this life had never expelled me. "You talk as if I ruined more than I did." "You intended to. I thought it would be a warning on your record. A warning can close a scholarship, a placement, a visa, a career. You knew enough." She looked through the glass doors at Claudia, being led toward a conference room. "My mother said everyone cheats somehow. Connections, tutoring, donations. She said we were only making the hidden part efficient." "And did you believe her?" "When it helped me." That answer was finally honest. "I'm sorry," she said. "Not because I was caught. I'm sorry because I knew you trusted me, and that made you the easiest choice." The sentence should have cut me. Instead, it closed something. "I know," I said. "That was the part one needed you to understand." She nodded, then asked, "Did reporting the card early save you?" I thought of the crash, the rain, and the first life no one else remembered. "It gave the truth a timestamp," I said. Years later, when I became a registrar in emergency medicine, a student arrived at my department in tears because her hospital badge had disappeared from a locker. The supervising doctor told her to wait until the end of shift in case it turned up. The student apologized for causing trouble and said she was probably overreacting. I heard my old voice inside hers. I stopped the handover, called security, and had the badge deactivated within 6 minutes. It was found that evening in another trainee's bag beside copied medication room codes. No drugs had been taken. No patient records had been opened. Because we acted early, the incident remained an attempted breach rather than a disaster. The student thanked me as though I had rescued her. I told her I had only believed the timing. After she left, I opened the locked drawer in my office where I kept one object from medical school, my replacement ID with its silver strip and visible issue date. The photograph showed a younger woman trying not to look frightened. On the back, Mina had written the original incident number in permanent ink. I had once thought that card represented victory over Serena. It did not. It represented the moment I stopped waiting for certainty before protecting myself. The first time my identity disappeared, I searched quietly and gave the thief hours to become me. The second time, I reported the loss while the space where the card had been was still warm. Serena entered the examination believing she carried my name, my access, and my future in her pocket. Instead, she carried a deactivated piece of plastic tied to a report number, a timestamp, and a trail she could not erase. She used it once. The system opened just far enough to expose everyone standing behind her. Then every final grade she had built on stolen certainty was cancelled, one after another, until the transcript she had protected at any cost became what my life had almost become, a blank page with her own name at the top.